At 9:30 in the evening on October 24th, 1967, two boys on Main Street in Newfield, New York, saw what they described as a craft hovering about 130 feet above the ground. The object was of a dull silver color, about 30 feet in diameter and 6 to 8 feet high. Over the course of the next month, there were dozens, perhaps as many as 100 sightings of UFOs in and around Newfield. Hi, I'm Dylan Zetchak, your host on Paranewfield. In Chapter 2, we're going to explore Newfield's part in what's been called the Great UFO Wave of 1967. Newfield was a community in transition. Its population grew by 1,200 in the 1960s, but most of those new residents would be commuters. It was becoming a bedroom community. The Route 13 bypass had been completed in 1960, and Main Street was no longer a major road. At the same time, the long decline of farming in Newfield meant that there were thousands of acres of inactive farmland in Newfield. The year 1967 was also a time when anything relating to space was of great interest. NASA's Apollo program was in full swing as the country was racing the Soviet Union to the moon. The TV show Lost in Space was in its third season, and the original Star Trek was in its second season. And there was what came to be called the Great UFO Wave of 1967. Thousands of reported sightings of alien visitations across the country. UFO reports were much more common and got a lot more press in those days, but an all-time peak of interest was reached in 1967 when the U.S. Congress, the news media, and the scientific community were engaged in open debates about UFO sightings. It was in this context that the boys, Donald Chizar and Pat Crozier, saw the UFO hovering over Main Street at this spot right behind me on October 24th, 1967. It was something of a sensation. Overnight, people in Newfield and then other parts of Tompkins County began to see UFOs everywhere. According to Chizar, there were markings on the craft, which he could not recognize, in a large window. The object hovered in the same spot for about 2 minutes, tilted upward in the rear. Then the rim lights became very bright. It assumed a horizontal altitude and disappeared at great speed, like a puff of the wind. Two humanoid figures could be seen, rough-colored and brownish beings with big, wide hips. The following night, Chizar later told investigators he saw two more of the same type of flying objects. Air Force Lieutenant Gerald White of the 35th Air Division from Hancock Air Force Base came to Newfield on November 9th. That night, 45 citizens and investigators met with him in Newfield, and for 4 hours shared stories of local UFO sightings. The meeting was also attended by a representative of the University of Colorado UFO Project, also known as the Condon Commission, and Northwest University professor Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the chief consultant for the Air Force Blue Book UFO Investigations Project. Two paranormal investigators came to Newfield from the Independent Aerial Investigation and Research Corporation. They interviewed witnesses and donated vacant office space for several weeks and examined locations associated with the UFO sightings.
Well, back in the 60s, people used to line up on Benjamin Hill Road to watch all these UFOs that were flying around. And Bea Warris, that used to live just up the street from the Covered Bridge Market, had the Air Force at her house, and a bunch of us went down there, and the Air Force people said that we were all hallucinating and seeing things.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Paranewfield. Please join us in the next chapter when we explore the haunted hallways of the Newfield schools. Until then, I'm your host, Dylan Zetchak.